G'day folks, Paul, Perth FourbeeFour Adventures, and welcome to another episode of my 4x4. Now excuse the location, we're not in one of our usual little hidey holes out in the bush somewhere because of isolation, so we're in my driveway. We do have a bit of bush in the background, so it kind of looks like we're a little bit out in the bush, but never mind. So you might hear the odd bit of background noise, a few crows up in the trees behind us, somebody using a whippersnipper over there, but that's all part of suburbia. So anyway, we'll get this episode underway. This gentleman next to me needs no introduction for those of you that know our channel. There's of course Gary, so welcome Gary.
G'day Paul, how are you mate?
Good mate, and his beast, the Jeep. So do you want to kick us off with what is she, mate?
Yeah, okie dokie. So it's a 2008 JK, Jeep Wrangler, sport version, particularly for those of you in the US that are looking at it, and I'll get onto why I bought the sport version later on in the piece. 3.8 litre V6 petrol. Lots of drink. But end of the day, that's exactly what it is. It's no 08 JK, in my opinion, and for what it's worth, is one of the top three capable four-wheel drives ever built, behind the 80 series Toyota and the GQ Patrol.
For sure, and we can back that up by saying that since Gary's got this Jeep, we have not had to pull him out of any situation. He's got stuck a couple of times where he's got himself out, but we haven't had to pull him out, so technically he hasn't been stuck.
More through good luck than good management.
So anyway, we're at the front of the girl, and we'll start with, we'll cut because we're about to get a delivery.
We'll start with the courier dropping something off. That's what we'll start. Time out.
So we'll start off with the front of the vehicle. There's a bit going on up the top here, so do you want to run us through there and work your way down?
Yeah, I can start up the top here. Okie doke. Poison spider bonnet vent, and for anyone that drives a Jeep, we all know that they suffer from under bonnet temperatures horribly. Worth their weight in gold. Lowers the under bonnet temperatures by approximately 40%. So a cheap investment and well worth the effort. So yeah, the poison spider hood vent. One of the biggies here, which is also a problem with the Jeep, the normal bonnet catches, the standard bonnet catches for the Jeep are pathetic. Yep. They vibrate like you wouldn't believe. So rugged ridge metal bonnet clips.
What are they usually made out of?
The standard ones for this model were a rubber compound, and like anything else, when it's rubber, particularly over the years, the rubber stretches, so she starts to get a little bit vibrating. The ones that I originally had on this, the bonnet would lift almost an inch, right, in vibration. And it was, yeah. Well, A, it was really frustrating and horrible to look at, but B, it was only a matter of time before she jumped out of those and folded back against the roof, so I wasn't all that happy.
You don't want that happening while you're driving along.
Yeah.
I've had it once before and it scares the crap out of you. So, and your bonnet doesn't close afterwards.
Absolutely. So yeah, moving further along here, you'll notice I've whacked a bit of an angry face on it. Some people like them, some people don't. I think it gives it a little bit of character.
For sure.
I've had to make a couple of modifications to that for people that know the JKs. Normal angry eyes have got a grille behind them. I cut mine out to let a little bit more airflow through because the grille was getting it to run reasonably warm. It was when I put the angry face on, it sort of jumped from where it used to sit at 92, 93 engine cooler temperature up to about 99. So a little bit of an angle grinder there, cut the grille vents out, which I still think looks quite good. You don't really know unless you know exactly what you're looking at. Back down sits rock solid between 92 and 93 degrees. Again, which is for the US people, that's around about 185 Fahrenheit, which is pretty good for one of those things. They can get reasonably hot. Moving down with the bar, it's a TJM sports bar. Very, very solid. I really like the look of them. For Jeeps, you can get anything, any model, any make, any brand. These are not exactly budget. Cost more than I really wanted to pay for it, but that's beside the point. Yeah. But really, really strong. I think it looks good, and it certainly doesn't impede on the approach angles. A lot of the bull bars that you have drop down a little bit at the front and impede your approach angles, and that's one of the joys with this thing here. Can get in and out of obstacles really, really easy.
I think one thing you do need to spend a bit of coin on in your builds, guys, is your bull bar. As Gary says, It's a pretty sturdy piece of kit, and it does offer a lot of protection at the front of your vehicle. We are prone to animal strikes here in Australia, especially the old kangaroos that like to sit on the side of the road and wait till you almost get, and then they cross. So they're something you don't really want to be going on the cheap side, in my opinion.
100%, and we've done that not in this vehicle, but another vehicle that I've owned, I've had a couple of roo strikes. Bull bar has saved us. There's only one time that the roo actually got above the bull bar and took out the bonnet, but it wasn't a showstopper. It was annoying, it was frustrating. I dented my bonnet, I had to get that repaired. Actually, I had to replace the bonnet, but we were away on a remote trip when I hit that without protection at the front. That could have been a showstopper. Would have been back through the grill, smashed grill into radiator.
Absolutely.
Would have been horrendous. And then over here in Australia, to get towed out of where we were, possibly looking at about $10,000, 10,000 Australian dollars to get recovered. So it would have been horrible.
So some people will even walk away from their vehicles in that instance if you're right out in the never. Mate,
100%. But anyway, also moving on to here. Cheapy King's light. This is a real budget option. That light there I bought brand new from King's Supercentre. 30 something bucks I think it was on special. Probably not the brightest that you've ever seen in your life, but it does the job wonderfully well. Wonderfully well for my needs. No longer have I got the big spotties and stuff where you need to see a million miles down the road. That does the job perfectly for me.
I mean, we don't do a lot of night driving. We like to get to camp during the day, don't
we? Ideally, I like to call beer o'clock when we're looking at camp, but probably between 3 and 4 o'clock, so you've got plenty of daylight and enough time to sit down and enjoy and relax. We do have another budget option in behind here. Is a 12,000 pounds Dominator X winch, again from King's Supercentre. Yep. Probably a third of the price of your average good quality brand. Well, definitely probably a quarter of the price of the Warns, which are the Rolls Royce of winches.
Yep.
Haven't had to use it a great deal.
Well, he has once.
Well, yeah, I had to give up. I made a bit of a hand here once with it.
We tested it.
I have used it a couple of times and hasn't let me down. Haven't had a problem with it. One of the big things that people were talking about was the seals in these, the grease is no good, yada, yada, yada. So when I got it, I pulled it apart. I made sure that the seals were fine. I re-greased it with good quality grease. I'm not saying the grease in it wasn't good quality. So I thought better safe than sorry. So I pulled everything apart, re-greased it, buttoned it all back up again, and haven't had a problem at all. And one thing that I did notice when I pulled it apart, and I didn't pull it apart from brand new, I had it on for a little while. There was no water ingress in it, there was no dust ingress in it, and I've had it underwater on tracks. God knows we drove some dusty tracks with it.
Sure.
So everything seemed to be all right. But yeah, for me, it's an insurance policy more than anything else. They say £12,000, you believe them that it's £12,000, but at the end of the day, the old girl here, 1,800 kilos ringing wet, as long as I'm not sitting in it. If I'm sitting in it, we're 2 tonne, but so it hasn't got a massive lot of weight that it would need to pull anyway, unless I'm trying to assist someone else. And with all due respect, I'll help anyone anytime, but I've put things on this vehicle for me and my recovery, and if I can assist someone else, well, that's great. And again, we'll go through that. I've towed a big heavy car.
Flip up.
Yeah, the flip up number plate at the front. This is really, I mean, it's great, but it's annoying as all hell. The amount of times that you'll be driving through water as she goes crunch and bends the number plates. So I've made a couple of little mods underneath here. I've put a far thicker plate in the back of it, right, and put a couple of extra more robust screws in. So now it's probably around about 2 mil, right? And since I've done that, I've stopped bending number plates.
And we haven't been through any water because it's been the middle of summer over here. So.
Well, I wasn't going to go down there, but now that
once we're allowed out, there should be plenty of water, I would imagine.
There's going to be lots of water, particularly near my place. So we've got down there, and obviously we've got the rated recovery points at the front, which were standard on this bar work anyway.
So any bash plates underneath?
Not yet. At this point in time, a typical JK would come down here. really good approach to departure angles, and it's relatively safe up there. But as you can see, you've got your steering arm right up front. And if you're going to take an impact on something, that's what's going to hit.
Yeah, not ideal.
Well, no, it's not ideal, but I do actually carry a spare steering arm.
No, okay.
Not around on the day-to-day, but if I'm going to go anywhere, like when we went to the Jagerups, right, unlikely I was going to bend anything at the front, but I carry a round bar. That's all it is, with threads on the end. Slides in the back, takes no room, weighs bugger all, and you can literally change it on the side of the track in half an hour. Yeah. So when you know that there's a weakness, I carry one with me.
Yeah. It's not something that's going to take up a lot of room in the vehicle either as well.
No, well,
being a shorty, there's not a hell of a lot of room in the back. So.
And we'll get to that. So yeah, look, it's one of those things, and I do carry a couple of spare parts with it. They're not putting the cart before the horse. A lot of people say, "Oh, Jeeps, God, it's a Jeep, it's unreliable." We'll talk about that later because I've got a few things to say on that point, but I find it totally different. So yeah, in a nutshell, essentially that's pretty much the front part of the vehicle. Okay. Standard guards, they're just the normal stock standard guards. There's no supports or anything underneath them. Yep. And I guess while we're standing here and the camera's through, there's a couple of options that I've chosen to take up on the Jeep. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm not exactly sure if you can get to it, but we have the mandatory windscreen crack, right? So that's an optional extra that most people choose on Jeeps. They get all. It's
actually an optional extra we have through most of the people in our crew. I'm pretty sure Dylan and Ben have got just as many cracks in their windscreen as well.
Well, Dylan's actually beats mine.
Yeah, Dylan's has.
Dylan's runs right across the entire.
You've seen Dylan's walk around. I think Gary does mention how his windscreen tops his.
Yeah, no, it's magic. And obviously we've got the Safari snorkel on the side. With these in Australia, I think there was probably a choice of 3 snorkels, or 3 different styles of snorkels. We have one that comes down and the side pipe runs right across the side here and buries in. We've got another one that comes down and just looks like a glob sitting on the side of your car, for everything to run through the side. And that one there actually comes down and even though it's not part of the guard, it butts up neat against the guard. Right. I think that looks just that little bit more streamlined rather than just having this blob of fibre sitting on the side.
For sure.
So that's why I chose that Safari snorkel. It was more aesthetics than anything else, because the other snorkels that are on it are all the same. Takes air in at the top, feeds it through into your airbox on the inside. So yeah, that was just more aesthetics that I went through for that. But yeah, that's about it. Under the engine bay, I will say now, actually, I'll pop this. And throw that up. That there is the exact same as the Coles showroom floor. There is not one modification done underneath there, other than the sealed airbox, which was with the snorkel. That's why we'll talk about reliability at a later point in time.
Okay.
So yeah, no, she's the bog stock as 3.8 V6 petrol. So there we go.
All right, and on that note, I think we're done at the front, and we'll mosey on around the side of the vehicle and have a look at some other bits and pieces. Alrighty, and with the magic of editing, we have now arrived down the side of the vehicle. So we'll get Gary to talk us through a few bits and pieces. We'll start off with your tyres and lift, mate.
Okay, well, first cab off the rank, it's a 2.5 inch lift, Terraflex with Falcon shocks, so Terraflex coils, Falcon shocks. Tyres on it, I've kept them reasonably close to standard. A little bit of a story on why I ended up with the Toyos. If you watch our channel, go back and have a look at a bit of a hill climb where I shattered a tyre. But I'm running Toyo 265 70 R17s. So essentially just a margin, just a tick under 32 inches. Okay. Right, the average Joe runs 33s. I drive this thing 140 kilometres a day, every day, to and from work. So fuel economy, big thing. Once you start obviously going up in tyre size, you start chewing through more fuel, it gets a little bit costly. Does everything I need it to do. These days I don't go into all of the massively hard challenges. You see these obstacles and that's for other guys in our channel to do. If I have to do it, I certainly can, because it's more than capable. But if I don't have to do something that's really challenging, where I'm going to run out of ground clearance, it's a case of, like, you know, I'm out here to have fun and have a good time.
Yeah.
So I'll drive around it. So yeah, that's the tyres.
So I mean, and I run the Toyos on mine as well, as you know. But these are the mud terrain.
Yep.
Bit more aggressive on the wall. And how are you finding them for noise?
At this point in time, I've owned four-wheel drives for 40 years. They're the quietest tyre on the road I've driven. And I've driven a lot of really good branded tyres. I think, again, for my purposes, excellent road, like, there's bugger all noise with them. It's a Jeep, so you know, they're noisy. But road noise, no problems at all. Grip off road, second to none. Right, they are a genuinely really good tyre. I would more than happily recommend those to anyone, and I don't do that lightly. And when these come due to be changed, which is obviously not going to be for a long while, there's still plenty of tread on it. I'm going back. I'll be buying another set, because they are an excellent tyre. And like I say, it was one of those things where I wasn't looking at the Toyos. I really wasn't. But it was a necessity that I had to get a new set of tyres at the time, and it was right after, and I'm talking the week after, a four-wheel drive show, the big one that they go around Australia. And the brand and style of tyre that I was after wasn't available in Australia at the time. Had a 3 to 4 week wait. I didn't have 3 to 4 weeks to wait.
No.
So I went with the tyres, and really glad I did.
And just a shout out to our channel partners who helped us out to fit the tyres, Integrity Tyres in Wrangler. If you're looking at a set of tyres for your vehicle, go and see Brad. He'll look after you. He looked after Gary with his. He's looked after mine. Helped us out with a few bits and pieces along the way. So really good bunch of guys there. And yeah, he pretty much rocked in there that afternoon, and within an hour or so you had a brand new set of boots on, didn't you?
But okay, they're a supporter of the channel. They do nothing. They just look after us.
Yeah.
I will support them till the cows come home. Zero notice. It was easy to do business with. They were fantastic to be able to help. I drove in one afternoon, spoke to them down there at Integrity. We went through a couple of different options that I had. I went, okay, I'm going to choose the Toyos. Under an hour, I was driving out again. A really good price, easy to do business with, and just this is going to sound funny. It was a really nice experience, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, having a chat with the people. It's like you've known them for 50 years. I didn't know them at all, right? But they knew I was part of the channel, and they were fantastic. And the service that I seen other people receiving was the exact same as the way that they were treating me. So there was no, oh, we kind of support your YouTube channel and treat you any different. Everyone gets the same service. They were fantastic. Anyway, moving back just a little bit, this is what I was saying about the Safari Snorkel. In my eyes, it just looks a little bit neater.
Yeah, it does.
Ends there, but it looks like it's coming up.
As you say, you normally see them running down here, but that's tucked in behind the guard. Can't see it at all. Yeah.
And I really wasn't a big fan of it, running up across here and then cutting through bonnets and stuff. But
yeah, well, no, you're kind of limited with your space there as well. Right? You've only got like 5 inches and it's curved, so it's not going to sit very pretty on there, is it? It's
horses for courses. It's as simple as that, and that's why I got that. One thing. Standard Jeep aerial, snorkel when you're driving. Here to tell you, gets annoying. Little tip for you: when you off-road makes no difference whatsoever, but when you're driving on the freeway, cable tie. Job done. And again, I'm not going to pull everything off to pull this out because it's in behind here. Too much like hard work. Coming back down, Jeep rock rail.
Yep.
That's saved me a number of times for panel damage, I've got to admit. I was never sure. This is the first vehicle I've ever had with rock sliders on it, and I was never, do you really need them? I'm here to tell you, yeah.
So absolutely. Are they factory?
They are factory rock sliders. They come standard on the Rubicon, but not on the Sport. but I got them. Well, actually, they were on this. I bought this second hand, but the guy that actually bought this originally got that as an upgraded option to get rid of the side steps and put those straight on. So they've been on since new, but yeah, it's off the Rubicon model.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. Everything else down the side here, you'll see, is absolutely stock standard at this point.
Alright, so here we are at the front of the vehicle, and because there's not a lot of room in the front, I'll stay outside and then Gary can stay inside, and we'll have a look at the inside of the vehicle.
Okie doke. The inside of the vehicle looks relatively stock, but it's not quite. First cab off the rank up here, wild boar grab handles, mate. They are. I'm a big guy and I can hang my whole weight off these things.
Yep.
Worth their weight in gold. Cheapest chips, worth their weight in gold to get in and out. It's not so bad with only a 2.5 inch lift, but when you get the vehicles that are bigger, you know, your 4 inch lift and God knows what, and you know, all your 40 inch tyres, you need something to grab onto to get in. The standard grab handles in these are a piece of cloth that hang off your roll bar. They were horrible. So yeah, they went straight on. Cost me like 40 bucks or something, 30 bucks. Okay. Up front here is obviously where I keep my phone, so I've just got the normal phone mount that sits on yonder. I used to have another one on this side, but we won't go into that. That kind of failed miserably and didn't help a few things. Okie dokie, so starting from the top, we've got the standard radio, CD player, doesn't have Bluetooth, but we kind of fixed that. So they're actually not a bad unit, particularly for an old bloke like me that listens to the radio and might want to put a CD in to listen to some music. I have the standard speaker that I take everywhere with me, so we've got some sort of music around the campfire overnight. I've got the EDS gauge up here. Now on the EDS gauge, I've got that for my voltage, air intake temperatures, engine coolant temperatures, oil temperature. You can get almost any sensor that comes through your ECU can be read on that. So basically I just look at that for the engine temps and all of your fluid temps. Again, it's one of those things, everything sits rock solid in this, but the Jeeps have a reputation of getting hot and bouncing around with their temperatures everywhere, so I like to monitor it. I really do, and particularly this has only got one battery in it, this vehicle, so I always like to know what sort of charge and bolts and stuff like that's running through that battery once you start putting it under load with, you know, like with lights, or if I've got a fridge running or I've got something else plugged in, I don't want to get caught out and go, oh, battery's dead. So that's part of the reason that I run that. When we come a little bit further down, and people think it's a standard thing in cars, it's not in Jeeps. This is a handbrake, and it used to be for show. Now it works.
It actually works.
It actually works. It took a year and a lot of fancy footwork, but I got the handbrake in the Jeep to work. If anyone wants to know how that happened, first off, you need to subscribe to the channel, and secondly, I'll sell you the information because it's not easy. No, but in all honesty, the handbrake in this Jeep actually works really, really well now. I've got light switch on the front here. That's for front light bar. Okay, I've got a light switch down the bottom, down here, where you see that little red light come on and come off. That's for the rear, what do we call it? The rear camp light that's really low.
The low camp light at the back. Yeah.
The low camp light that's really low. Now, if Paul wants to just hand me that camera just for 1 second, I'll sort of slide it in here. We will see 3 little switches just down the side there. Okay. This little switch here is a kill switch for these two, so they don't accidentally get activated. That one there, front locker, rear locker. That makes the world of difference if you're going to get bogged and if you're not going to get bogged, guys. I'll just hand that back. Yeah, running e-lockers in this, I picked them up from someone else who had totaled their Jeep. And I got them for a really, really, really good price. So yes, they were second hand when I got them. But I knew the history behind them, so I took them out of his, put them in here, work a treat. It was a little bit fiddly to fit and get put in. I'm fairly handy on the tools, and I thought, yeah, I can have a crack at that, you know. not that handy. So yeah, got them professionally put in by the guys at Armadale Auto. Will, thanks very much, mate. So yeah, they do work a treat, absolute treat. And in all honesty, you know yourself, I called it that I was bogged, and I was bogged going nowhere. And that was not long after I had the lockers fitted to this thing, and then the penny dropped. Hang on, I haven't hit my buttons yet. Whacked the buttons and drove straight out. I didn't have to lower tyre pressures, get assistance from anyone, and that to me was, it really explained or showed what the difference between having lockers and not having lockers. Because without them, I was stuck big time, and we were looking at a recovery. Memory, hit the buttons, drove out. Drove out easy. Yeah. Oh, okay, so I was revving a little bit hard, but yeah, drove out easy. So, world of difference. So, really happy with those. Everything else in here is 100% stock standard.
You got something else going on behind your head there. What's that?
Yeah, well, the thing that's going on behind my head, again, old bloke, a little bit hard of hearing. So I've got the Oricom UHF, 80 channel UHF, and yes, you can get an external speaker for them, pain in the backside. I've got that cable tied to the back here because the speaker is actually inside the unit, and I can hear people crystal clear with that there. When I had that tucked away where you couldn't see it and it was kind of like it was all wonderful, they have a speaker in the microphone, hopeless. Even when I had that sitting back here next to my ear, very, very hard to hear people. So yeah, no, I just whacked a couple of cable ties in that, good as gold, don't have a problem with it. Run the cable up, again, a few cable ties, yonder, sits up there. So essentially, I don't even, when I'm driving off-road in particular, I don't even take that off. I just curtain talk, picks up everything. You can speak quite clearly on it. Again, a really budget mod. You can get better radios with better reception and clearer and all of the bells and whistles, but that does me perfectly fine. Everything I need it to do. Haven't had a problem with it. Now, tell a lie, did have a problem with it quite a while ago. It started crackling, and you know, like I could hear things, and then it'd crackle on reception, and it'd do the same on transmission. So I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I got the screwdriver out. I'm no good with electrics. Pulled it apart and had a look, and the power wire was not making too fantastic a connection. So yeah, how hard is that? You know, out with a soldering iron and a couple of little snips and snip and joined it up and soldered it up, and since then good as gold. So yeah, that's what we've done. One thing that I did do in this, and it's impossible to show really, used to be like spaghetti, cables running everywhere, wires running everywhere. So while we've been not able to go out and hit the tracks and anything, I thought that's one thing that I really do want to tidy up. So I've tidied that up. I've got all of the cables running. Well, when I say all of the cables, I've got one main set of cables running from the battery through onto the inside of the cabin here. They're all set out into a switch box, which I would like to get an S-Pod, so I can have all the buttons in one point, but that's down the track, they're a bit expensive. But everything running through into the one set of switches with independent fuses, and then all of the wiring running to the various bits and pieces inside here out of one set of cables. So I've got the cables for the fridge that I can put in the back. They're just rolled up underneath the seat, so it's just a case of rolling that cable out, put the Anderson plug in, that's done, that's ready to rock and roll. All of the switches for the lights from the back, for the radio, the hot shoot match, all runs off that one thing. So really simple. Like I say, electronics is not my cup of tea. It's not that hard. It's a positive wire, a negative wire, and a couple of fuses. So job done. So I was really pleased with getting that done. The other thing here that I do have that I've put in here was like $10 from Bunnings. Up here, right, these are a pain in the backside when you park. Like when you park in these, because the windscreens are straight up and down, they're hot as. Job done. I found it in Australia, in America, probably buy them anywhere. In Australia, I found it almost impossible to buy a sunshade for a Jeep. They were either this big, or you'd wrap it across your front windscreen and down your side windows, and it'd fold in. Like they were 3 times the size that you needed, or half the size that you needed. So I bought 2 of those, or excuse me, those little screens, put those in there. Cost me absolutely next to nothing. makes the world of difference when you've got to park the car up in the sun all day. You can actually get into it. You don't burn the juices out of your hands on the steering wheel. It does keep it a whole lot cooler. So yeah, and I just put them up there and leave them up there. The only thing that I will say with those, when you're doing a steep incline, I've got to take those off, because that actually, when I'm sitting here, I can't see the gutter on your garage door, right? Because it's just the height thing of the driver as compared to that. When you're normal driving, you can see way down the road, but if you're driving up a hill, it's quite hard to see up through there. So, but again, pulling those off just takes 2 seconds, and that's pretty much the girl in a nutshell. Everything else in it is stock standard.
All right. Well, we might grab. What do you reckon? Is it too early to have an alcoholic beverage, or should we go make a cup of tea, sit out the front?
No, look, mate. I'll be honest. I'd probably let's grab a cup of tea.
Oh, we'll grab a cuppa, and we're going to sit at the front of the vehicle and have a bit of a chat.
Yep, works for me, mate.
All right, folks. Well, here we are at the front of the vehicle, and it's chat time, and I've got the sun right there. So you won't notice squinting because we're wearing sunglasses, but apologies for the sunglasses, because again, we are on the driveway, and you might catch the odd pedestrian walking past on the footpath on the other side. So. Anyhow, some questions for Gary. Now, those of you that have followed our channel from the beginning will remember way back when we first started, Gary used to drive a short wheelbase Pajero. And I'll show you a little snip here of him driving it. And that's the last we ever saw of the Pajero. And then he had a bit of was it a lone 70 series?
Well, the Padge was off the road for a while.
A little while.
A couple
we
of
never
months.
saw it again.
Yeah, a few months. And while that was off the road, I was fortunate enough to be able to borrow the work ute. And there was no dramas whatsoever. I've been with the business for quite a while now, and my boss gave me the keys to that, and he knows me quite well. He actually said to me straight up, he said, look, take this, use it as much as you want while you're getting your car fixed. He said, one question. I said, yeah, what's that? He said, you wouldn't take this off-road, would you? And I answered him with, would I do that? So I didn't lie.
That's right, you didn't lie.
I just answered a question with a question. We left it at that, and no harm, no foul.
That's right. Which leads me into my actual question, the Pajero to a 79 series to a Jayco. Why the Jeep?
Okay, we'll just back and we'll try and cut a long story short. The Padge, underrated vehicle. I have an affinity with short wheelbases. That was the last of the short wheelbase Pajeros, the NS, 3.2 turbo diesel. Met an untimely demise through a number of factors. To get it fixed and have it to become super reliable, I was almost looking at a total rebuild, and for a car that's worth sort of $5,000 to $7,000, I couldn't see the economical sense in throwing $10,000 at it. So decided against that. I put a band-aid fix on that and traded that in. I was semi-honest when I traded it in. They bought it with all faults, if any faults. And truth be told, the Pajero was actually still on the road, still driving around. My son drove past it the other day, said it looks the exact same as when you drive it, and it's going well. So, but yeah, anyway, that was the Padge, underrated vehicle, has its limitations, super comfortable. 79 was a loaner while I was in between vehicles, and this one here, I've owned a lot of different four-wheel drives. I love the Jeep. I love the way they look. It was one of those things where I didn't have a lot of money at the time, or a lot of ready cash at the time, and it was almost, do I bite the bullet and spend 50 grand and then be worried about where I take it and what I do with it and all of the bits and pieces, yeah, or do I buy something a little bit more economical and drive it the way I want to do it? So at the end of the day, the decision was go out and buy the Jeep that I wanted to buy. Very economical. I bought the Sport. I would have liked the Rubicon. But then when you start summing it up, the major differences in the Rubicon are the lockers, quick disconnects, and a couple of other little minor bits and pieces. I've still got Dana 30 diffs in this, whereas the Rubicon's got 44, but these have been beefed up. I've put the E-lockers in it, which are in, and da-da-da-da. This thing, as it stands, in Australian dollars, I bought the car for 12 and done all of the bits and pieces. As it stands there, that car owes me under $15,000.
Okay.
Cheapest chips.
Yeah.
Cheapest chips, and super capable and super reliable. And I'll touch on to that reliable thing. We've all heard the stories about how unreliable Jeeps are, and they're always breaking down. You're always breaking bits and pieces. I actually had a JKU a long time ago. Didn't have any problems with it. Having said that, the engine that was in it was not a Jeep engine. Got rid of that through various reasons. So I thought I'll bite the bullet. I'm fairly handy. If something goes wrong with the motor in this, I can do a barra swap or something along those lines. But I've left it standard. I've left it like it come out the showroom in engine bay. Economical, I'm using probably 10.5 to 10.7 litres per 100 kilometres, which again, anyone viewing in the US is around about between 22 and 23 miles to the US gallon, which I'm sure you'll agree, if you know Jeeps, is pretty bloody good.
Yeah, you're not far off mine. I mean, mine's 3 litre turbo diesel, and I average 11.5.
Yeah. So yeah, look, it hasn't missed a beat. Touch wood. I don't want to jinx it, but it hasn't missed a beat at all. It's a petrol vehicle, so you have to drive it marginally different than you do with the diesel. I've got to admit, I do miss that low down torque that a diesel gives you. That's what I mean. You need to adjust your driving style just marginally. This has got a heap of horsepower in it as it stands now. I think it's about 228 horsepower at the rear wheels as a stocker.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It's great.
And petrol at the moment is around about 98 cents a litre, so you're doing all right.
Well, I run E98
yeah,
in this.
which is a bit more expensive.
Which is more expensive, and I actually filled up this morning on the way over here because I had to pop into work and then come past. So this wasn't necessarily unnecessary travel, people. I needed to drive past Paul's front door to get to work, and I paid $1.01 a litre. Now there's 4 litres, give or take a little bit, there's 4 litres to the US gallon. So you know, do your sums on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, cheapest chips at the moment. But yeah, like I say, people worry so much about what their fuel economy is. And if you're worried about fuel economy, don't buy 4-wheel drive. It's plain and simple. Like, seriously.
Because to get to decent 4-wheel drive places, you have to do a lot of driving.
Well, just a quick one for the viewers, and you will see it on another walk around coming very shortly because my project build is almost finished. And that's an LS1 conversion in a HJ45 Land Cruiser. If we're going to start talking about worrying about fuel economy, I'm here to tell you.
That goes out the window with an LS1.
We've got all of the big bits. You put 37s on that girl with the LS1 conversion in it, man, and I tell you, I'm thinking I'm up around about 30 litres per 100 kilometres on the highway.
And just for those of you that have heard Gary give out the odd punch to the Toyota owners, he owns one. So,
mate, look, if you can't poke fun at Toyota owners and Datsun owners.
And hell, we poke fun at ourselves as Jeep owners, so there you go.
Absolutely, but it all is all in good jest. But yeah, in all honesty, that's why I went down the Jeep. I just love them. With Jeeps, it's either love them or hate them.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm a lover of them. There's things about them that I absolutely hate, but that's part of the love affair, I think.
Well, that's it. All right, another question for you. Now, for those that have followed our channel again, will know that Gary and I have been doing this, well, we've been 4-wheel driving for the best part of 3 years now. And on our channel, probably a year and a half, serious adventuring.
Yeah.
But before I came along into Gary's world, he's been around the bush a little bit.
Hey, just a bit.
What's your what's your most memorable trip you've ever done in a four-wheel drive, and what vehicle were you in?
Ooh. Probably the most memorable trip that I've ever done in a four-wheel drive was my first big lap trip around Australia. It took a little bit over 4 months, and it was an absolute belter.
Yeah.
I did it in a Suzuki Sierra. I was much younger.
Now, I didn't know that. That's why I asked him the question.
I was much younger, much fitter, much more nimble. But yeah, the part of the reason I say that's the most memorable trip, I've done the lap around Australia 3 times now. I've been fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time four-wheel driving because I originally come from the East Coast where everything is much closer than it is over here in the West. I've taken the Padge around Australia, or most of the way around Australia, I should say. I didn't do Cape York in the Padge. I've taken a Suzuki Sierra around Australia, and I took an 80 series Toyota around Australia. The 80 series was far and away the most scary trip around Australia I've ever done, simply because you're a long way from absolutely nowhere, and some of the tracks we were doing you look at and go, holy snapping, but you had no choice. They were tracks that you either turned around and drove thousands of kilometres back, and that's thousands of miles almost in the US, or you actually tackled the obstacle that was there.
Yeah.
And for anyone that watches four-wheel drive action, they tend to have a go at these really tough tracks and get halfway up them and then get the winch out and yada, yada, yada. Not this little black duck. This little black duck looked at something and went, holy snap, where do I position my car to winch it up this thing? Some of them I was actually winching before I got into the obstacle, because that was the spot to park it. And it wasn't that it was a scare factor, it was more the point of, I'm a long way from nothing. So if I break something here, I'm going to be here for a long, long time. And in Australia, particularly when you're on the more popular tracks, you might have someone come past you might only be waiting a couple of days. Some of the lesser known tracks you might be waiting a couple of weeks, and some of the really remote tracks that we were doing, you could be there literally for months and not see another human being. The fact was there was 3 of us that were actually doing this trip, and we went over 2 weeks worth of driving, and we drove a couple of thousand kilometres in that 2 weeks and didn't see another vehicle. It was amazing. So
that's good.
Yeah, that was a big one. But yeah, the first trip, I think, in the Sierra.
Okay. Very different.
That was exciting. Well, that trip I did by myself too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no other support vehicles, no other vehicles. It was me, single, solo, no one else. That's where I learned how to pack a car.
Yeah, not a lot of room in the Sierra.
Oh, no. Not a lot at all.
All right, we're getting back to the Jeep. What's next?
Okay, well, the next cab off the rank, I want to get rid of the standard guards on these and put the steel flat guards on, which will kind of add, it's almost like putting a scrub bar on the Jeep without putting a scrub bar on the Jeep. Because these guards here, I'm not sure if you picked it up on the camera, they're chewed out quite a bit, where you sort of bang it into a few rocks doing some challenges, or you hit some trees and bits and pieces where, where your talent runs out but ambition is still driving, and you kind of do some damage. So the steel, Americans call them fenders, steel guards, is probably the next cab off the rank. Other than that, I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. So I'm not seeing the need to continue to build that, because in the right here, right now, most of my money, or all of my money, is going into getting the 45 up and running. The original plan for that was to have it up and running for early next year for a really big remote trip that we'll be going on. Then the COVID-19 thing kicked in, so I got a little bit motivated and did a lot of work on the vehicle over the past couple of weeks, to a point now where I pick it up next week. It's in with a friend of a friend. All electrics, front to back. It is all being run, all nice and neat, everything hunky-dory. Like I say, mechanically wise, I can do it myself or do a majority of the work myself. Electrics, I just, yeah, I can do basics, but that's it, and I want this thing spot on. And I've really got this, as a daily driver, I've got this to a point where it does what I want it to do, how I want it to do it, and it will go further than I'll push it to go. So, yeah.
Any thought of putting a roof rack on it?
Big expense for not a lot of value. Put a roof rack on these, you need one of the good ones, the internal spines and stuff. I had a look at it, and I'm looking anywhere between sort of $1,400 and $1,800 for a roof rack. And you kind of go, yeah. These things flex pretty good, without a doubt. But being a short wheelbase, they still are a little bit tippy. Put a roof rack, start putting weight up on top of the roof. That makes them even more tippy. And the last thing I really want to do is put this thing on its head. Yes, it's got roll bars and all of the bits and pieces inside it, so like passenger-wise inside, if I put it on its side or roll it over on its roof, unless it's a horrendous rollover, I'll be safe, but I don't want to bust the car. No. I really don't want to bust the car.
No, for sure.
So, yeah, no, I looked at it and thought, I don't need a roof rack. I fit everything inside this, and particularly when I do get the 45 up and running. The 45 is not a daily driver, the 45 is a totally different beast. That will be used when we're doing like the hardcore tracks. If we like Ben and Dylan like to do a lot of the tougher obstacles, I'll bring the old girl out and give her a test out on some of them. And when we're doing a lot of the long distance, long drive, a couple of 1,000-kilometre trip, I'll break the 45 out and take them and flatbed, like straight tray back, so I can fit everything back there.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we've covered most of the things with Gary's vehicle. I would normally at this point shake his hand and wish him all the best, but with the COVID-19 social distancing, we'll just have to raise our cups of tea, and you'll notice the Perth FourbeeFour Adventures on the end of it. We're not selling these yet, but we're just playing around with a bit of merch. That'll come later on. So we need more subscribers, folks. So get out there, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see, and hopefully we've kept you entertained during isolation. And look out for us out on the track soon. All right, take it easy, guys.
Thanks, guys.